just to finish off, we've looked at differentiation. It's an enormous topic. We've been looking at it from the point of view largely of task and support, I suppose, as well, a bit. And we've said there's two basic major ways of doing this. Differentiation by outcome, where you have a ladder of tasks, but it must end in an open, challenging task, which has been carefully designed so that the Roberts can have a bash at it and do reasonably well, and do useful, busy work for, with it. But also the Susans will be stretched because it could be a PhD as well as be a simple task. And we've said that even if you differentiate beautifully in the classroom, some students will fall a bit behind. And so consequently, it's very important to discover which students are falling a bit behind, getting a bit lost, and so on, and put in support for those students. It might be another student helping them, it might be extra workshops or whatever's to try and provide that support. And that needs to be funded and so on. It'll pay for itself in terms of improved student success rates. After colleges discovered this, that system I've just looked at with you is in place in all of the Beacon colleges. And those Beacon colleges do very well financially because they're maximizing the achievements from each student who enrolls. So there's a lot for the college to gain by providing that support, but it's a devil's own job to get it all going. One last thing I'd like to look at from the differentiation point of view is questioning strategies in the classroom. So we're going back into the classroom again now. This links in beautifully with formative assessment or assessment for learning as well. But it's not something we've got right for the most part. So I'd like to look at it with you. And if you look at page 46 to 48, I will now explain what we're going to be doing for a little bit. So you can find page 46, that'd be good. Okay, you know those which reports? This is going to take a good 20 minutes, so it's quite a substantial activity. You know those which reports, those consumer magazine reports on, say, cars or washing machines? And what happens is they put all the models of washing machines down here, or cars, and along the top they put criteria, like miles per gallon for a car, say, or acceleration 0 to 60 and so on. And then they give a star rating. Oh, the acceleration is really good, give it 3 stars, or the acceleration is really poor, give it 1 star, or double exclamation mark, or something like that. We're doing that, but we're going to do it for questioning methods. The questioning methods are all the way down the side, the left-hand side of page 46. They're described in more detail on page 47 here. And on page 48, there's another couple, mini whiteboards and basketball, question answer nominees basketball version. And on your table, you'll find at least one little piece of blue paper somewhere near the middle, and it'll have something like C3 or B2 or A1 or something on it, okay? Now, let me explain how this works. Now, listen very carefully because it's quite complicated. Let's say you've got C3. Here are where these are exactly the same as these. Yeah, this, exactly the same layout, exactly the same format. And you're going to come and put your scores on here, but you haven't got time. We can't all score everything, the whole of this, although it'd be nice to if you had the time, but we haven't. So what we're going to do, if I've said C3 on your little piece of paper in the middle of the table, you're going to put your score on C, not on B or A, because it says C3. And 3 means you do the third column, 1, 2, 3, and that says student feedback. And you think, what the hell does that mean? Well, student feedback will be defined at the bottom here, okay? So you can read that, look at it very carefully. By the way, all of these are to do with the whole class. They're not just to do with the one student who happens to answer a question in the question and answer session. It's the whole class. So it says students, plural, and it really, really means that S on the end. So if your table is C3, then you will eventually go through all of these methods, every single one, and you'll score them as, you can see at the top there, you can either give it a 3-star, which is excellent, 2-star good, 1-star, well, they're here actually, 1 star for weak, and if it's really poor, you're going to give it a double exclamation mark. So you've got all these scores that you can give all of these methods. So if you've got C3, you'll score all of these methods all the way down this third column. So we're hoping to see from you, you know, anything from a double exclamation mark up to 3 stars for each one of these. And there's some very broad nibbed pens, so you can see them right from the back. And I'm going to ask you to come up and put your stars, or whatever you want to put, here. Nice, big and bold. Make it as broad as possible so we can see them right from the back. Also, some people have scored this and some people haven't. So if at the same time you can remember your notes from this morning, if you can come and put a tick. The idea was you were either looking at ease of use of Dylan Williams' methods or of everyone's attention. Are we all here? Or whether they were adaptable or not, or whether they were effective or not. And you chose a few. It doesn't matter if you didn't see them all, but if you've got a few ticks to share, do come and please put those on here as well, please. If you make a mistake and you want to remove one of your stars, I have some sticky white paper here. This is my patent star remover, right? If you want to change that, so that's on the side. If you've got any queries, don't hesitate to ask. One other thing, hang on, before we start, please. Can I just have just one more sentence, I think? Hello. Just one more sentence. Can we assume there are some Roberts in you? I know it's very hard because you've all got all Susans. But can you please imagine that there are a few Roberts who will not do the work if there's a way of wiggling around it? Okay? That's enough, I think. Now, one thing I should have said is, some tables have got just one piece of card in, but if there's a lot of people on your table, you might find you've got 2 or 3 of these. Would you please split yourselves into groups of about 3 or 4 to do this? If you find yourself in a group bigger than 4, I suggest you split into, say, a 3 and a 2 or whatever, score it separately, and then argue about your differences before coming and putting it up on there. As soon as you're, one last sentence, I know I've promised this before. One last sentence. When you've finished scoring all the way down your column, would you please go back to your place and ask yourself, could I make use of any of these methods, or could I adapt them for use in my classroom? Are there any there that I like? Any questions about what we're doing? It's going to take you at least 15 minutes. Probably 20. Any questions? No? Do ask if you have a question. What we've done, as you can probably see, is we put a red circle whenever you've scored it as a single star or a double exclamation mark. So if you've scored something as weak or poor, we put a red circle around it. But you've only done one of these, so let me explain each of these columns, because you've only done one of these columns, obviously. All of these are just repeat scorings of the same thing, and Julie's very kindly averaging them for us, so we're going to know what Wales thinks about questioning methods by the end of this session. The first column on all of these, obviously, is participation rate. What proportion, actually, if you 3 sit down, the people behind you will be able to see there's some seats over there. You're very welcome to sit on those. Thank you. The first one is participation rate, which is what proportion of students are actually doing it, yes? If you've set a question, how many are actually trying to find the answer? Participation rate. Obviously, we want all of our students participating. We want a good score there. The second one is teacher feedback. Does the teacher know whether the students have got it or not? If, for example, this scores badly here, you'll notice, for question and answer volunteers, because the teacher gets feedback about what one student thinks, but doesn't know about the others. So it's not representative feedback. It doesn't tell you what the whole class thinks, only what one student thinks. Other methods further down here are scoring very much better on that basis. And that's what Estienne would call checking the learning. You know, I mean, have they learned? Do they know what you've been trying to teach them? The next one is student feedback. Most of the feedback that students get during a question and answer session like these comes from each other. It doesn't come from you. You can't be everywhere. And so an opportunity to talk to another student and say, I think the answer is 43. What do you think? And then the other student saying, oh, no, there's a minus sign there. It can't be 43. That's feedback to me. I've misconceived this, you know. So a lot of the feedback comes from another student. Student feedback. Does an individual student get feedback on their answer? If they've got a question, is there somebody to give it to them? In a way, that boils down to student dialogue, which some of these methods support and others don't. Yeah? So is everybody doing it? Does the teacher know who's got it and who hasn't got it? Does the student get an opportunity to ask questions and to get their answer checked? The next one is thinking time. How much time does say a weak student get in order to think through their answer to a question? There should be a red circle around that one, I just noticed. And a woman called Rowe did some wonderful research on this, and one of the very many things she discovered was that the average thinking time that a student has got between asking a question and getting the answer back is 0.7 of a second. Right, now imagine you're a weak student in a class, right? You ask, you know, a teacher asks a question, and you think, I wonder what the hell that means. Yeah? And then 0.7 of a second later, Susan gives the answer. And then you think, oh, I wonder what the hell that means. When the teacher says, well done, Susan, that's very good, and moves on. And you think, whoa, what happened there? You know, you're sort of lost very quickly. Whereas with some of the methods, the thinking time is much more. So there's an opportunity for a student to sort of think, oh, I wonder if it's like this. What do you think? And maybe a bit of dialogue as well, you know. I think the answer might be so-and-so. What do you think? No, I don't think it is really because of so-and-so and such and such. Let's look at the handout. There's a bit of a chance to sort of think things through, cogitate a bit. If we're going to ask these challenging questions, these open, challenging questions of Roberts and Roberta's, we better be careful to leave them the time they need to get their heads around it. They can't be expected to keep up with the Susans, but they can be expected to be given the time to be allowed to go at sort of something like their own pace. So thinking, last one is student comfort. And this has to be treated with a bit of caution because it's entirely from the student point of view. Here, the student's got 3 stars, look, for student comfort for question and answer volunteers. And this is because Robert soon recognizes, hey, if I keep my hands down, she won't trouble me. And that's very comfortable, thank you. But sadly, it doesn't encourage learning. So this isn't so hot, really. We don't want things to be totally uncomfortable, as this seems to, you know, this comes out rather badly here. Almost, you know, the best it gets is 1 star, because, you know, this is question and answer nominees, where the teacher says, you know, what's the answer to this one? Rodney, you know, and Rodney thinks, oh, and that's a little bit scary, isn't it? Whereas others down here are quite, you know, reasonably comfortable down here, and yet, in fact, there are some methods in the middle here, look, are doing pretty well on pretty much every characteristic, really. You know, scoring 2 and 3 stars. I mean, there's some disagreement, you know, as you'd expect. You know, some people are scoring, you know, some things 2 and 3. And other people are scoring it 1, but it probably depends on precisely how you do it. If something's been scored 3, it probably means there's a way of doing it that would work quite well, but whatever.